Hello, my curious friends from all over the world. Welcome to Happy Sleep. Have you ever, in the middle of your busy, screen-filled day, stopped and wondered, what was it really like at the beginning? Not in a history book, not as a cartoon character, but to truly live as one of our most distant ancestors. To feel the sunrise not as an alarm clock, but as a signal to survive. To know the world not through words on a page, but through the feel of cool stone in your hand, the scent of rain on dry earth, and the shared warmth of a fire your family built. Today, we are going to do something extraordinary. We are going to step back, not just a few hundred years, but tens of thousands. We are going to spend a complete day in the life of a Paleolithic human. We will walk with them, hunt and gather with them, share their fears and their laughter by the hearth. We will untangle the myths from the reality, using the latest science and archaeology to rebuild their world, 1-minute detail at a time. So, if you're ready for an adventure into the very roots of what makes us human, then you are in the right place. Before we begin this journey, do me a huge favor. If the idea of uncovering our deepest past excites you, smash that like button. It truly helps this channel grow. And subscribe so you don't miss our deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. I want to know where in the world you're joining us from and when you're watching. Is it a rainy afternoon in London? A late-night session in Tokyo? Drop a comment right now with your location and the time. Let's build a modern tribe right here. Now, find a comfortable spot. Turn off the notifications for a while. Imagine the electric hum of the modern world fading away, replaced by the raw, unfiltered sounds of the ancient earth. Our day begins in the deep, velvety blackness just before dawn. Your eyes open. There is no ceiling, only the darker black of stone above you, stained by countless generations of smoke. The air is cool and carries a complex tapestry of smells. The mineral dampness of the cave, the dry, sweet scent of the dried grasses and furs you sleep on, the lingering, comforting wood smoke from last night's fire, now just a mound of warm ash in the central hearth. This is not a cave in the Hollywood sense, dank, dripping, and giant. It is more likely a rock shelter, a deep overhang that provides protection from rain and a commanding view of the valley below. It is home. You stretch. Your body is lean and powerfully built, every muscle defined not in a gym but by relentless daily use. There is an ache in your shoulders from yesterday's foraging, a small scratch on your forearm from brambles. These are the gentle records of a life lived physically. You are not a solitary caveman. Around you, rustling and stirring, is your band, perhaps 25 to 30 individuals. There are a few other adults, your siblings, cousins, a trusted friend. There are elders, their faces lined with experience, their knowledge of seasons, animal tracks, and plant lore more valuable than physical strength. And there are children of various ages, one of whom is already poking at the ashes with a stick, curious. This social group is your everything, your survival, your safety, your identity. The idea of a lone caveman battling a saber-tooth is thrilling nonsense. In reality, loneliness was a death sentence. The band shared food, cared for the young together, and protected one another. That child poking the fire, he is not just your responsibility, he is the band's child. An aunt might nurse him if his mother is unwell. An older cousin will carry him on a gathering trip. The elders will teach him which berries are sweet and which bring sickness. This system of shared care, called alloparenting, is deeply ancient and crucial. It meant that even if a parent was lost, the child, and the band's future, was not. As the first gray light seeps into the shelter, the quiet murmur of conversation begins. It is not the complex, abstract language we use today, but it is far more than simple grunts. It is a language of action, description, and immediate need, likely mixed with extensive hand signs and expressive gestures. A pointed finger towards the valley, a specific gesture for river, a sound that means deer tracks. Plans are being made. The discussions are practical, born of a deep shared understanding of the landscape that is your pantry, your hardware store, and your territory. Your stomach rumbles. The remains of last night's meal, some roasted tubers and strips of dried meat, are gone. Today's food is out there, not in a cupboard. The band splits into smaller, efficient teams based on skill and today's goal. The fastest runners and most keen-eyed trackers, often but not always the younger men, prepare for a hunt. Others, often including the women, who might be carrying infants snugly in slings made of hide, an early form of baby wearing, will go foraging for plant foods. The very young and the elders might stay closer to the camp, tending the fire, making simple tools or processing materials from the day before. There is no idle time, but there is also no job in the modern sense. Every task is directly, visibly linked to survival. Before anyone leaves, you turn to the most important technology you possess. Not a smartphone, but a toolkit that took millions of years to develop, your stone tools. You kneel by a leather hide spread on the ground, your workshop. On it are several cores of fine-grained flint and chert you collected from a riverbed a day's walk away. Also, present is a smooth, heavy, rounded river cobble, your hammerstone. This is the heart of Alduin and Acheulean technology, a tradition that spanned over 1,000,000 years. Let's break down this process because it's where human ingenuity truly became tangible. You are not just looking for a sharp rock. You are engineering one. You select a core that fits nicely in your hand. Holding it steady, you strike a precise blow near its edge with the hammerstone. With a satisfying click, a flake, a thin, sharp slice of stone shears off. You examine it. The edge is razor-sharp, capable of cutting through hide and muscle with ease. This flake itself is a tool, a handy, disposable knife for butchering. But you're not done. You continue striking smaller flakes from the core, not randomly, but with intention. You are shaping it. You turn it over and work the other face. What emerges is not just a sharp edge, but a symmetrical teardrop-shaped form, a hand axe. This is the Acheulean Revolution. It is not a weapon to be thrown, but the Stone Age equivalent of a multi-tool. One edge is pointed for piercing and digging. The sides are sharp for slicing and scraping. The rounded base fits perfectly in your palm, giving you leverage and control. You use it to butcher game, to dig for roots, to chop wood, to crack open bones for marrow. It is beautiful in its perfect functionality. This act of tool-making is not just craft, it is cognitive training. It requires forward planning, an understanding of geometry and fracture dynamics, and a mental template of the finished product held in your mind before the first strike is made. As you work, you might use a soft hammer of antler or bone for the final, delicate flacking, creating an even finer and more controlled edge. The flakes that fall are not waste. You will scoop them up. They are perfect little scrapers for cleaning hides or shaping wood. With a few final tools, a hand axe, a selection of sharp flakes wrapped in a leaf, maybe a pre-shaped spear point of stone lashed with sinew to a long, straight shaft, you are ready. You stand, the weight of the hand axe familiar and reassuring in your grip. The sun has now cleared the horizon, washing the world in gold. The foraging party has already left, moving with a knowing, efficient pace towards the nearby woodland. Your hunting party gathers, checks tools, shares a look of focused determination. The day's true work begins. We follow the hunters first. The Hollywood chase, a screaming, spear-waving sprint after a mammoth, is almost certainly wrong. Hunting was an exercise in extreme patience, stealth, and profound knowledge. You are not faster than a deer. You are smarter. The idea that hunting was a test of intelligence over brute force is backed up by some pretty incredible archaeological finds and modern rethinking. For a long time, the classic image was of a brave hunter hurling a spear at a charging mammoth. But recent research from places like UC Berkeley suggests something even more ingenious for tackling the biggest prey. Imagine this. Instead of throwing your precious, carefully made spear and maybe losing it, you and your companions could plant the butt of your spear into the ground, angling the sharp, stone-tipped point outward. You might even build a simple brush fence to guide the animal. Then, you work as a team to startle or drive a large animal like a bison or even a young mammoth toward this waiting weapon. The animal's own charging force, which is far greater than any human throwing power, would then impale itself on the spear, driving the point deep into its body. This wasn't just a sharp stick, it was an engineered system. The spear tip, often a beautifully crafted Clovis point in the Americas, was designed to function almost like a modern bullet, causing serious internal damage as it went in. This method was smart, cooperative, and it turned the animal's strength against itself. It shows a profound understanding of physics, animal behavior, and teamwork that goes far beyond simple force. And speaking of those weapons, they weren't static. They changed over hundreds of thousands of years in direct response to what was on the menu. Early on, when our ancestors shared the landscape with massive megaherbivores, the weapons were hefty. Think of the long, thick wooden spears found at Schörningen in Germany, dating back over 300,000 years. These were likely thrusting spears, built for power. But as time went on, for a complex mix of reasons including climate change and human activity, many of these giant species declined. The average size of prey animals got smaller. You don't need a massive, heavy spear to hunt a deer or a wild goat. So, the technology evolved. People began hafting smaller, sharper stone points onto spear shafts. Later came the revolutionary inventions of the spear thrower, or atlatl, which acts as a lever to hurl a dart with deadly force and accuracy. And finally, the bow and arrow. These were precision tools. The stone and bone points for these weapons became progressively smaller and lighter over time. This shift from large, strength-based weapons to smaller, precision-focused tools isn't just a story about hunting. Some scientists argue it required and encouraged greater planning, skill, and cognitive ability. It was a technological arms race, driven by the environment. Now let's completely bust another myth while we're here. The idea that only men did the hunting. This man-the-hunter story is deeply ingrained, but the evidence, from both ancient bones and modern physiology, says it's wrong. In small, nomadic bands where every single person's contribution was a matter of life and death for the group, it makes no sense that half the adults would be excluded from one of the most important food-gathering activities. Think about it logically. Everyone needed to pull their weight. The archaeological record shows this. When we look at Neanderthal skeletons, for example, we find that females and males have the same patterns of traumatic injuries, the kinds of injuries you get from wrestling large, dangerous animals. They have the same wear and tear on their bodies. They were living the same hard, physical lives. And physiologically, there's a fantastic argument that women might have actually been especially suited for one of the key hunting methods we talked about, persistence hunting. This all comes down to hormones and muscle composition. Estrogen, a hormone more prevalent in female bodies, signals the body to burn fat for fuel. Fat provides more sustained energy over long periods compared to carbohydrates. Furthermore, women tend to have a higher proportion of slow-twitch muscle fibers, which are built for endurance and resist fatigue. So, in a long, grueling chase under the sun, following an antelope for miles and miles, these physiological traits would have been a huge advantage. The idea that pregnancy or child-rearing would permanently sideline women is also flawed. In foraging societies, child care was a communal effort. The whole band helped raise the children. A mother might hunt with an infant in a sling, or other band members would watch the child. Life was a team effort, and everyone on the team had a role to play in the hunt, the gathering, and the protection of the group. Okay, back to our hunters, using whatever brilliant strategy was right for the day and the prey. The text mentioned that the goal wasn't always a giant creature. This is a crucial point. Hunting was a flexible business. A study of a Neanderthal site in Spain called Abric Romani gives us a wonderful snapshot of this flexibility. By analyzing the ages of the deer and horses they hunted, researchers can guess their strategies. Sometimes, the age profiles of the animals look catastrophic, meaning they killed a mix of young, prime adults and old animals, much like you'd find in a living herd. This suggests a non-selective approach, maybe an ambush at a watering hole where anyone who came to drink was fair game, or a coordinated drive where the goal was to take as many animals as possible in one go. Other times, the profiles are prime-dominated. showing a strong preference for healthy adults in their peak. This is selective hunting. It requires more skill and patience, staking out a location, waiting for the perfect, healthiest animal to come into range and taking it. It shows these hunters weren't just opportunists. They were tacticians who could assess a situation and choose the best method. Meanwhile, as the hunters are tracking, the other half of the survival equation is unfolding with the gathering party. The script set up to 65% of the diet could be plants, and this is the broad-spectrum revolution in action, though its roots go deep. This isn't just about eating more plants. It's about exploiting every single available resource efficiently. Early humans were ultimate generalists. At a site in the Zagros Mountains dating back over 45,000 years, alongside the bones of wild goats and gazelles, archaeologists found strong evidence that people were also eating tortoises, birds, and even the occasional carnivore like fox. The tortoise shells even had burn marks, suggesting they were roasted right in their shells. This diverse diet was a hallmark of adaptability. The broad spectrum especially applies to small game. Think about the difference between catching a tortoise and catching a rabbit. A tortoise is slow, easy to collect, and requires almost no pursuit cost. It's a high-ranked, easy reward. A rabbit or a bird is fast, tricky to catch, and requires more energy and skill. For a long time in the deep past, evidence suggests people mostly bothered with the easy-to-get small game. But later, as environments changed or populations grew, the archaeological record shows a shift. People started putting more consistent effort into catching those quicker, more challenging small animals like hares and partridges. This tells us they were intensifying their use of the landscape, leaving no potential calorie source untapped. They weren't just waiting for a mammoth to wander by. They were actively managing and exploiting a complex web of resources, from the smallest seed to the largest beast. This brings us to the immense knowledge of the gatherers. This was a living library passed down through generations. It wasn't just, "This berry is red, so eat it." It was knowing that this specific root, which looks like a brown stick, is packed with starch if you dig it up in the late autumn, but it's toxic if you eat it raw and must be cooked for a long time. That mushroom is delicious and safe, but the one that looks almost identical will make you terribly sick. The bark from that tree can be pounded and used as a mild painkiller. This woman here knows the exact week when the nuts by the river bend will be perfect, before the squirrels take them all. This knowledge of botany, seasonality, and basic pharmacology was every bit as complex and vital as the knowledge of animal tracking. And crucially, they didn't just eat these plants raw. Processing was everything. The invention of grinding stones was a revolution as important as the spear. Hardy roots, cattails, and wild grains could be ground into flour. This flour could be mixed with water and cooked on hot rocks into a simple flatbread, a reliable, storable carbohydrate source. This processing unlocked calories that were otherwise inaccessible or indigestible. It allowed for food storage, which buffered against bad hunting days or harsh seasons. The control of fire, which we know dates back at least 800,000 years, supercharged all of this. Cooking didn't just make food safer and tastier. It literally transformed its chemical structure, making more calories and nutrients available for our bodies to absorb. The hearth, where this cooking happened, became the heart of the home, a place of warmth, light, safety, and social bonding. Finally, let's return to our successful hunting party with their young deer. The script describes the meticulous, reverent butchering where nothing is wasted. This concept of reverence is key. In a world where life is fragile and resources are everything, you develop a deep respect for the animal that has given its life to sustain yours. Every cut is made with purpose. The hide isn't trash. It's tomorrow's cloak or a blanket or a covering for a shelter. The process of turning a raw, stiff skin into soft, supple leather, a process called tanning, is long and labor-intensive, often using the animal's own brain matter or smoke, representing an investment of time and knowledge. The meat is carefully separated. The best cuts might be shared immediately in a celebratory feast, strengthening social bonds, but most will be preserved. Thin strips are dried into jerky over smoky fires, creating a lightweight, protein-rich food that can last for weeks and be carried on journeys. The bones are treasures, smashed open for their rich, life-sustaining marrow, a concentrated source of fat and calories that was especially crucial in lean times. The long, straight bones are saved. A skilled toolmaker will later split and grind them into needles for sewing, or awls for punching holes in leather, or sharp points for fishing. Sinews become tough thread. Tendons become strong binding cord. Even the hooves might be boiled for glue. So as the sun reaches its highest point, both parties return to camp. The hunters are not just carrying meat. They are carrying hides, bones, sinew, raw materials for 100 future tasks. The gatherers are not just carrying berries and roots. They are carrying flour, medicines, fibers, and the knowledge of where to find more tomorrow. The bounty isn't just food. It's the entire physical and intellectual portfolio of the band, successfully converted from the landscape into security, technology, and social cohesion. The rest of the day will be spent in this camp, transforming these raw products into the stuff of life, all while sharing stories, teaching children, and reinforcing the unbreakable social ties that made this delicate, intelligent way of life not just possible, but a resilient success for hundreds of thousands of years. The afternoon sun is warm. The immediate, desperate pressure of the food search is relieved, but work continues, now of a different, more social kind. The camp becomes a hive of quiet industry centered on the revived fire. Some members are processing the haul. Nuts are cracked. Tubers are peeled and set to roast in the embers. The dried meat strips are being prepared. An elder is patiently teaching a child how to properly hold a flint core to strike off a useful flake, guiding their small hands. Another is carefully attaching a new stone point to a spear shaft, using heated resin from a tree and tight wraps of sinew to make a deadly, solid weapon. This is also time for maintenance and creation. Using a sharp flint burin, a tool for grooving, someone is incising a series of parallel lines onto a piece of smooth bone. Is it a tally mark, a decoration, an early form of symbolic thought? We can't be sure, but art and symbolism begin to appear in the archaeological record, hinting at minds that were thinking beyond mere survival. Someone else is repairing a worn leather legging, using a bone needle threaded with sinew. This period of relative calm is when social bonds are strengthened. There is time for gentle interaction. A mother nurses her infant. Two adolescents play fight, practicing moves they've seen the hunters use. Stories are shared, not with the complex narratives we know, but with gestures, sounds, and demonstrations, reenacting a hunt, warning about a dangerous cliff, describing the location of a new berry patch. Laughter rings out, a universal human sound. These moments of social interaction, scientists now understand, were not luxuries. They were biological necessities, releasing feel-good chemicals like oxytocin that strengthened group cohesion and reduced stress. And this brings us to the children. Their childhoods were longer than those of their ape cousins, a key evolutionary development. This extended period of dependency allowed for an immense amount of learning. They weren't just taught, they learned through immersive, playful imitation. A toddler might play with harmless stone flakes. An older child might follow a forager, learning to identify 100 plants. This long childhood, protected by the band, was the incubator for human culture, allowing complex skills and knowledge to accumulate and be passed on. As the afternoon wanes, the primary meal is prepared. The smell of roasting meat and earthy roots fills the shelter. The food is shared communally. There is no concept of individual portions. The successful hunter does not hoard the best meat. It is distributed, with particular care often given to the elders, the children, and those who were unsuccessful that day. This sharing ethic was the bedrock of society. It ensured that a stroke of bad luck for one person, a failed hunt, a sprained ankle, did not mean starvation. The group's survival was paramount. As the day comes to the end, the sun has dipped below the rim of the valley, painting the sky in those incredible purples and oranges that no modern screen could ever truly capture. And with that light goes the warmth. You feel the temperature drop almost immediately, a tangible chill that seeps into your skin. This is a critical moment in the ancient daily rhythm. The world you knew just minutes ago, the familiar trees, the rock formations, the game trails, transforms. Beyond the precious circle of light from your hearth, everything shrinks and melts into a wall of mysterious shifting shadows. Every sound becomes unfamiliar, amplified by the darkness. The rustle of leaves isn't just a rustle anymore, it's a question. Is it the wind, a small foraging rodent, or the quiet step of a predator? This is where the psychological dimension of life, the inner world of fear, wonder, and community, truly takes center stage, and it all revolves around one thing: the fire. The fire is now so much more than a cooking tool. Think of it as your original psychological fortress. Its light does something miraculous. It defines a space of here and not here. Inside the circle of flickering light is home, safety, warmth, your people. Outside is the unknown. That simple, primal division is deeply wired into us even today. The fire holds back the darkness in a very literal sense. It keeps most predators at bay. Animals like wolves, big cats, and hyenas have a natural, instinctive fear of open flame. To them, this controlled, crackling blaze is a sign of a powerful, intelligent creature, a line they will not cross. So the fire provides a dome of safety. But its power is also metaphorical. It pushes back the fear that comes with the unknown. That suspicious rustle in the bushes. If you can lean forward, squint, and see that it's just a branch tapping in the wind, the fear subsides. In the utter dark without the fire, that same sound could be anything your imagination, honed by survival, conjures up. The fire gives you the power to see, and therefore to know. It turns formless anxiety into manageable observation. This gathering around the hearth is arguably one of the most important behaviors in human history. We have incredible evidence of just how ancient this ritual is. The text mentioned Jesher Benat Yaakov in Israel, dating back 790,000 years. Archaeologists there found clusters of burned flint tools and seeds in specific spots, not scattered randomly. This is some of the earliest solid evidence of humans not just using fire opportunistically from a wildfire, but controlling it, keeping it alive, and gathering around it repeatedly. They weren't just thawing meat next to a random blaze, they were establishing a hearth, a home base. This changes everything. Around a sustained fire, you can do more than survive. You can socialize. You can relax just a little. The hard, physical work of the day is over. The nervous energy of being exposed on the landscape is eased. For the first time, there is a time and a place that is not about immediate, desperate labor. This is the cradle of culture. And in that flickering, hypnotic light, with full bellies and a relative sense of security, minds begin to wander beyond the immediate. This is where the first inklings of the supernatural, of art, and of profound abstract thought may have stirred. Look up at that sky, utterly free of light pollution. The Milky Way is a blazing river of dust. Stars don't just twinkle, they pulse. A shooting star scars the blackness. What is all that? The thunder isn't just a noise. It's a vibration that shakes your chest and rattles the stones of your shelter. What immense being is angry? And what about dreams? Where do you go when you sleep? And why do you sometimes see the face of the elder who died last winter? These aren't childish questions. They are the first philosophical inquiries. We see the echoes of this emerging inner world in their actions. The careful burial of the dead is a profound piece of evidence. At a site called Shanidar Cave in Iraq, Neanderthals buried their companions with purpose. In one famous burial, analysis of the soil suggests the body was placed on a bed of fragrant flowers like yarrow and cornflower. This wasn't just disposal. This was ritual. This was care. It implies a concept that the person is more than just a body, that they deserve respect, that perhaps their journey isn't over. At other sites, bodies are buried in a fetal position, maybe suggesting a return to the earth for rebirth, or with tools and meat placed beside them, perhaps for use in an afterlife. These actions speak of a mind capable of thinking about unseen worlds, about the past and a future beyond the present moment. Even their tools sometimes hint at this. The hand axe they were using were perfectly symmetrical and far more refined than utility demanded. Archaeologists find these sometimes exquisite, teardrop-shaped hand axes that are breathtaking in their craftsmanship. They are almost too beautiful to use. Were they status symbols, ritual objects, gifts? Or were they simply the ancient equivalent of a master carpenter making a perfect dovetail joint just for the satisfaction of it? An early expression of aesthetics, of the love of a job well done. That drive to create something beautiful or meaningful for its own sake is a spark of something new in the natural world. With these big thoughts swirling, the language around the fire changes. The day's practical signals, deer track here, water there, shift into a more contemplative narrative mode. This is the birthplace of storytelling. The day's hunt is recounted, but not just as a report. It becomes a story. The tension of the stalk, the moment the wind shifted, the brilliance of the elder's prediction about the animal's path, the strength of the one who delivered the final thrust. These stories do crucial work. They pass on vital survival knowledge in a memorable way. They reinforce social bonds and values like bravery, cooperation, and listening to elders. They turn shared experience into shared identity. Remember when we got the great stag is the beginning of a tribe's history. This is also the time for planning and learning. Plans for tomorrow are made, not rigid schedules, but loose agreements. Perhaps the signs show the fish are running thick in the river 2 days walk to the east. The group debates the move. Here, the knowledge of the elders is the most valuable resource they have, more vital than any physical strength. An elder might be the only one who remembers the great drought 20 seasons ago, and which hidden spring never ran dry. They remember the cyclical pattern of the nut trees that only bear a heavy load every 3rd year. They carry the mental map of the entire territory across decades. In an oral culture without writing, the elder's memory is the library, the hard drive, the survival guide. Listening to them isn't just polite, it's essential for the group's future. Children would absorb all of this, curled up next to parents, listening to stories that contained maps, botany lessons, and moral codes all woven together. As full darkness settles and the embers glow a deep orange, the band prepares for sleep. This is a communal affair. They don't have separate rooms. They huddle together for warmth on bedding of dried grass, leaves, and furs. The social bonding hormone oxytocin, released through touch, would literally help reduce stress and strengthen feelings of trust. The fire is carefully banked, covered with a layer of ash or slow-burning fuel to keep a core of embers alive through the night. This provides a faint, comforting glow and, most importantly, a ready source of spark in the morning. No need to laboriously start a new fire with friction. You just feed the preserved embers. Someone is always semi-alert. Often, it's an elder, a lighter sleeper whose accumulated knowledge makes them acutely aware of every normal night sound. Their sleep is different from ours. Research on modern hunter-gatherer groups like the Hadza of Tanzania suggests that before the invention of artificial light, human sleep was likely segmented. People would sleep for 3 or 4 hours after dusk. Then, in the middle of the night, they'd naturally wake for an hour or 2. This watch period was a time of incredible quiet intimacy. They might lie awake listening, tend the fire, have quiet conversations, or even move around a little. This biphasic sleep pattern is natural to our circadian rhythms when not overridden by artificial light. Then they would fall into a second, deeper sleep until dawn. This segmented rhythm meant the camp was rarely in a state of complete, vulnerable unconsciousness. There was often someone subtly alert. The final sounds of their day are the symphony of the ancient night. The deep, regular breathing of sleepers, the occasional pop or sigh from the embers, the distant call of an owl, the howl of a wolf pack far across the valley, reassuring because it's far, and the endless rustle of the wind. They fall asleep under the same stars we see today, but without any scientific framework to explain them. To them, the night sky was the ultimate storybook, a spiritual canopy, a clock, and a calendar. Their understanding of their place beneath it wasn't intellectual, it was visceral, intimate, and accepted. They were part of its mystery, not separate from it. And so their day ends as it began, in darkness together. This togetherness, the shared fire, the shared stories, the shared warmth against the chill of a vast, unknown world, was the ultimate key to their survival. It wasn't just their physical tools that allowed them to thrive. It was the psychological and social world they built in the flickering light of those ancient hearths. That capacity to find comfort, meaning, and identity in each other's company, to stare into the dark and tell a story against it, is perhaps the most fundamental and enduring legacy they passed down to us. The modern campfire, where we still instinctively gather to talk, laugh, and stare into the flames, is a direct link back to these very moments, 790,000 years ago. We are still those creatures, seeking light, warmth, and connection in the great, beautiful dark. And there we have it, a complete day in the Paleolithic. It was not a constant, brutal struggle, though danger was ever present. It was a life of profound skill, deep cooperation, and intimate connection. They were not primitive brutes, but fully human beings with ingenuity, compassion, and culture, using the remarkable tool of their evolving brains to not just survive, but to build the foundations of everything we are today. They didn't live in perfect harmony with nature. They worked fiercely within it. They weren't on a meat-only diet. They were intelligent, opportunistic omnivores. And they certainly didn't live alone. Their strength was, and always has been, in their tribe. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by the complexity of modern life, remember the caveman not as a simplistic figure, but as a master of their world. They knew how to make something from nothing, to read the language of the land, and to rely utterly on one another. In many ways, we are still living with their bodies, their social brains, in a world we've built that moves faster than evolution ever could. It's a fascinating mismatch that shapes our health, our stress, and our lives even now. This is where I need you, my modern tribe. Did this journey change how you see our ancestors? What part of their daily life fascinates or surprises you the most? Let's talk in the comments. And remember, I asked at the beginning, tell me where you are in the world and what time it is for you right now. It's amazing to think we're all connected by this shared, deep history. If you loved this deep dive, please give the video a thumbs up. It tells the algorithm you want more content like this. And subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. From me and from the echoes of all those ancient hearths where our story began, thank you for watching. Take care of your tribe, appreciate the food on your table, and maybe, just for a moment, listen to the world outside your window with ancient ears. Goodbye, good night, and sleep well.